Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, the last beers that I reviewed from this brewery came back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, before the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is a brewery that a lot of Europeans wanted to try stuff from for quite a wee while actually. We're a little bit of a whale brewery when it came to European beer lovers, me included. But I would say that this brewery are best known for their more kind of old school West Coast style IPAs, and this is a style that they always kind of excelled in actually. So the one that we're going to have a look at today was quite a random find here in Hong Kong. I couldn't believe it that I found one of their beers actually in one of my regular shops. But it's one of their more old school releases. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and I think it might actually be the strongest beer that I've tried from this brewery to date. So very much looking forward to it on that basis. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to the state of Indiana. We are going to go to a place called Munster, which is actually very close to Chicago in Illinois, a very, very good beer city these days. But that means that we're going to have a look at what I believe is my third beer from Three Floyds Brewing Company, or Three Floyds Brewing, I think we should say. But this particular beer is called Dreadnaught. It comes in at 9.4% ABV, and this one is an Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, West Coast IPA. So yeah, the name of this style has changed a little bit over time, of course, because back in the day this would have simply just been Double IPA, but with the emergence of the New England Hazies, yeah, you've got all sorts of things now. You've got American IPAs, which are a little bit in the middle of the New England Hazy, and the more barley malt focused and clear, bitter West Coast IPAs. But yeah, this is a more old school West Coast IPA. Of course, the beers we've had from Three Floyd Brewing before, we had the Robert the Bruce for review 1314, and then we reviewed the Permanent Funeral a little bit more recently, which was one of those big old school West Coast IPAs. We also reviewed Zombie Dust back in the day as well, which was one of the really, really famous beers. And those beers, of course, were thanks to Jesse Holden, who's been a long-term follower of the channel. A big shout out to him. I need to catch up with him again at some stage. So yeah, hopefully I can catch up with him at a beer festival at some point soon. So we'll see about making that happen. But yeah, Three Floyds Brewing, Dreadnaught, 9.4% West Coast IPA. This should be pretty damn good actually. This is another beer that I found in Gur Beer in the one mall in Tsim Sha Tsui here in Hong Kong. Really interesting find. The artwork just caught my eye. I saw Three Floyds and I thought, you know, I have to have this one. So there we are. But yeah, let's crack on and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Three Floyds Brewing before, and we will see about adding more to that list at some point in the near future. I do need to get back to Chicago and do some more out and about filming because there's so much good stuff there these days. But yeah, you'll find all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beer from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but quite regularly because we do get some random American stuff over here in Hong Kong, which is great. I absolutely love that. But yeah, do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Three Floyds Brewing once again then. So, Three Floyds Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Munster in Indiana, and the company was founded back in 1996 by Mike Floyd along with his two sons Nick and Simon, hence the name Three Floyds. But Nick is the main man when it comes to brewing, and apparently he travelled a lot around Europe learning about different hops, yeasts and malts and things like that, and then later he studied at the Siebel Institute in Chicago, which is a very well-renowned beer school, brewing school over in the US, actually. That's probably the most famous one, actually. Kind of akin to the German Weinstefan Institute or Domens or something like that. It's probably got the same kind of status in American craft beer circles. But Simon, on the other hand, is a trained chef, while Mike was a medical doctor and just enjoyed tinkering in brewing as well. But apparently they started out the brewery with just a few $100s, a 5-barrel Frankenstein wok burner, and some open Swiss cheese fermenters, and that was how they made the first Three Floyds beers. But apparently, for the most part, these guys tried to stick to the basic tenets of the German purity law, and they say that this allows them to produce a wide variety of beers despite the restrictions that it has. Pardon me. So the brewery was originally based in Hammond in Indiana, but they moved to Munster in 2000, and over the years they've expanded the brewery, and in 2005 they opened their brew pub at their location on the Indiana Parkway in Munster, and this also has a kiosk as well for takeout beers, and they offer first come first serve tours of the brewery as well while this brew pub was open. Unfortunately though, this shut down in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but a little bit before that in 2014 they announced plans for a distillery. This eventually opened in 2019 and it produces rum, gin and vodka amongst other things, and in that year as well, in 2019, they announced plans to expand the brewery and convert it to a more kind of campus-like setup, and those plans have been coming to fruition over the last few years. Like I said though, in 2020 they had to close the brew pub space due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but things are on the move there as well, and they announced in late 2023 that they're going to reopen the brew pub at some stage within the following month, so we should see that brew pub opening probably, I think, in summer of this year, 2024. Another interesting point about Three Floyds is that from 2015 they began a collaboration with Mikkeller in Copenhagen, the famous Danish gypsy brewery, to open the War Pigs brew pub in the Sydbyen meatpacking district of the city. Been there before, it's absolutely awesome. And this collaboration continued until 2021 when the company was separated. Mikkeller took control of the brew pub and the European side of the brand, while Three Floyds own the American side of it. And so, yeah, Three Floyds are producing the War Pigs beers as well. I don't know if they still share recipes and things like that. I don't know how amicable the split was, but yeah, that has happened. So yeah, Three Floyds Brewing are producing spirits these days, their old school beers, and of course the War Pigs USA craft beer brand. But yeah, as of April 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 450 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Three Floyds Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a look at the beer itself. So yeah, this one, I have to say the artwork looks very, very nice. I think I'll need to keep this can. This one, incidentally, is a 473 milliliter can, 1 American pint, 16 fluid ounces if you want to use the American Freedom unit scale. Plain silver top on the can there. The can is sweating a little bit because I turned the air conditioning off to film this video because it makes quite a bit of noise. But yeah, I have to say the artwork on this one is pretty damn nice. There you can see one of the Three Floyds symbols, and this one around here is one of the other ones. This is probably the most, for me at least, this is the most kind of recognisable Three Floyds one. The sort of skull with the bat wings and the kind of brewing crown on the top actually. But it says on the side here, an Imperial India Pale Ale with an intense citrus hop aroma and a huge malt body and crisp finish, 9.4% alcohol by volume. And yeah, it says on the side here, it's not normal. I like that. But yeah, lovely can, this one. Like I said, I picked this one up at Gerbier. It was a little bit more expensive. It was 120 Hong Kong dollars, which translates to about £12 sterling. Somewhere in the region of like $14 American. So yeah, that's probably quite expensive for the Americans buying this, but you know, import beer is expensive wherever you get it. The Swedish beers that I try here are a lot more expensive than they were in Sweden, of course, but the local stuff's pretty well priced. But yeah, that's everything we need to say about that. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. The Dreadnought, 9.4% ABV. I couldn't get any information about the hops and stuff in this one. So yeah, let's just get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. Little bit of foam as we open it up there, but yeah, this looks pretty damn good, I have to say. We're getting a good head on this one as well, and the can didn't feel too hard. I think this is pretty fresh. We'll check that in a little second. But yeah, I've got maybe 75% of the beer, maybe a bit less, out into the glass just now, and you can see this one has poured with about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say, cream coloured head. I did give it quite a bit of an aggressive pour there, which wasn't overly intentional, but yeah, I'll just let you have a wee look at the head on this one. You can see kind of medium-sized bubbles, smaller bubbles on the surface of liquid, but it does get a little bit more kind of like a soapy head the further up that you go. So yeah, the way everything kind of pieces together in that one is quite nice. In terms of the colour of this beer, this one's a sort of medium amber, if you like. So yeah, it looks good. Bit of a natural haze to it, which is what you want. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, this beer does look pretty nice. It looks good, I have to say. But pretty much what you would expect of the more kind of West Coast IPA style, actually. So in terms of the West Coast IPA, there's a few things we should say about this. So West Coast IPAs, for me, they can lean two ways. They can be a little bit more sort of caramelly and oily, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or they can be a little bit more bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing. Those are the two ends of the kind of spectrum with the West Coast IPAs for me. You do have a modern take on the West Coast IPA, which is a bit less bitter than the more old school ones that I was drinking back in the day. But for me, the kind of two definitions, or the two points that you need to have, or benchmarks with a West Coast IPA, is that they need to have higher bitterness, and the malt base is going to be primarily barley malt. New England IPAs, of course, have wheat malt and oat malt in there, but yeah, the West Coast IPAs are pretty much all barley malt. It's not unheard of to use a little bit of wheat or a little bit of oat, but yeah, primarily barley malt in these. And yeah, we'll talk about the hopping again a little bit later on. But yeah, this beer certainly looks as you would expect for an old school West Coast IPA. I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance of this one, so we can move on and talk a little bit about the aroma. So aroma section time with this. Let's do this. Oh yeah, that smells really good actually. This is in pretty damn good condition. Let me just check the canned on date with this one. Yeah, packaged on the 14th of March 2024. This is pretty damn fresh actually. I'm drinking this one for you on the 20th of April, and if you think how far this beer's travelled from Chicago to Hong Kong, that's good going. That is very, very good going actually. Obviously, you know, you usually want to drink these beers within like 2 or 3 weeks of being packaged and stuff like that. You know, you want your IPAs as fresh as possible. The West Coast IPAs, I think, last a little bit longer in the cans than the New Englands do, right enough, but you want to give the New Englands maybe 2 or 3 weeks to mellow out. The West Coast IPAs are good, you know, to go basically in my experience. But yeah, I have to say that's very good going. You can't really beat that for an import beer. 1 month, maybe 5 weeks from the packaging date. So good on Gerbier for getting these beers in and out there. That is very impressive. And you can tell how fresh this one is in the aroma. So I'll say this beer is giving you pretty much everything you would expect of the West Coast IPA style. You've got a nice little bit of breadiness in there. You've got a good little bit of sweetness. You can smell the deep dank aromas as well from the green component of the hops. And then yeah, you've got lovely oily fruity characters. This beer is pretty nice. But one thing I will say is that this isn't the most pungent of West Coast IPA aromas that I've come across actually. So yeah, that's a little bit of food for thought there as well, but we can still get everything that we want to out of this. So let's just break the aroma of this beer down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth, as we always like to do. So the backbone of this beer is of course a little bit of a kind of fresh wholemeal sort of brown bready bread crust. And for me, the American two-row malts are very distinctive because they have that sort of very sweet, biscuity, chewy, bready character to them, whereas the European crystal malts, the German crystal malts, are a little bit kind of just drier in their character. And you notice this with other types of malt as well, that there's differences depending on where in the world it's grown. Soil profiles, water profiles, all that jazz. But yeah, with this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of fresh brown bready bread crust. You get a little touch of woodiness in there. There's maybe a little bit of like cracker as well, to be honest with you. But yeah, sweet brown bread in there, quite a little bit of white bread as well. There's a good bit of brown sugar coming off this one, which, you know, at 9.4% ABV, this one's pushing toward the Triple IPA category, which I would say starts at 10%. So you have got quite a bit of sweetness out of this one. So yeah, for me, there's straight up sweet caramel in this one. You do get a bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit as well. And I'm not getting, you know, like so much in the way of like fudge and things like that. Like for the New Englands, you tend to get a bit more sort of fudgy character and, you know, Werther's Original butter candy type things. But yeah, straight up sweet caramel in this one. Quite a little bit of that kind of concentrated McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. I think in America you have to say cookie, to be honest. But yeah, white bread, brown bread, very sweet bread at that, little bit of bread crust, little bit of wood, little bit of cracker, then yeah, you've got your kind of brown sugary notes coming out of this one as well. And that's one of the things about the beer, because yeah, the colour of this one, as we said earlier, it's it's a medium amber colour, this one, so you can tell from the colour that this beer is a little bit more, it looks as if it's going to be a little bit more bready leaning, but when you smell it, it's a little bit more kind of caramel leaning. So yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role. Longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour as well. But yeah, you don't often have to care about that with IPAs. But let's look at the hoppy side of the aroma with this one then. We've covered the malty side of it quite well. So yeah, hoppy side of this beer. It's interesting, this isn't the deepest and dankest of aromas that I've come across, but the more you smell of it, the more your nose adjusts. But definitely the more bitter IPAs that you drink, the less you're going to be sensitive to that. So that's something I'm also conscious of when I'm doing these reviews, is I'm a lot less sensitive to bitterness than I would have been when I first started reviewing 10 years ago. Crazy, 11 nearly. But yeah, the green component on this one is kind of what you'd expect for this style. You've got a little touch of earthiness to this one. I suspect there's a bit of mosaic in this. We'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness in there, wee bit of herbal character. You've got some nice, it's got quite a nice floral aromaticity to it as well. I don't find this one overly dank and piney. And you've also got a little bit of a more grassy character to this beer as well, which is really nice. So yeah, the way that the aroma of this one goes together in that sense is very nice. Now, when it comes to hopping your IPAs, there are three different types of hoppings that you can do. Early addition hopping, which takes place in the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. Late addition hopping, which takes place in the last half hour of the wort boil usually, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a brighter green component in terms of your flavour and aroma. And then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that's all about flavour and aroma, and it translates to very bright flavour and aroma as well. West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're deeper and danker. New England IPAs rely on the latter two, late addition and dry hopping, which is why they are kind of brighter and more juicy and stuff like that. So yeah, the way that this one pieces together is absolutely awesome. So yeah, very, very nice stuff actually. Yeah, I think this one, you can tell it doesn't come across as if it's overly early edition hopping, but this is one of the more old school release beers, so I do suspect it will be. And I'm curious to see how that transpires when we actually taste the beer. We're very close to that now. In terms of the aroma of the fruity side of things with this beer, I find this one quite orangey, to be honest with you, and again that makes me think mosaic. So the earthiness and the sort of orangey tangerine characters that this beer has makes me think mosaic. There is something a bit more tropical in here, like Simcoe. I do want to say this seems like it's mosaic and Simcoe or something. It's not quite complex enough, I think, to be Citra. But yeah, so the aroma that I'm getting out of this beer, for me, there's quite a little bit of like oily passion fruit in there, maybe a little bit of mango and, you know, some dried apricots and pears and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot of like tangerine orange coming out of this one. I would have been tempted to guess Azaka, because, you know, Azaka has that pineapple-y, orangey sort of thing to it. But, you know, I don't know when this... I know this beer is one of the more old school ones, and I don't think Azaka would be really that popular back in the day when this was released. And I think Three Floyds tend to keep their recipes pretty much the same. They don't tend to change the hops, from what I understand. But yeah, passion fruit, bit of mango, as I say, drier apricot and pineapple and stuff, and then yeah, oily tangerine notes. So yeah, really, really nice character with this beer. The aroma's great. So as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. So let's get the rest of it into the glass. Perfect pour nearly. There we go. So yeah, we'll dedicate this review to Jesse Holden, one of the OG fans of the channel, I have to say, and yeah, I need to catch up with him again at some point. So Jesse made my first Three Floyds reviews possible, so we'll dedicate this one to him. Cheers, Jesse, and I hope to see you again soon. This one, the Dreadnaught, 9.4% West Coast Double IPA from Three Floyds, Munster in Indiana. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Let's do this. Yeah, that's pretty damn good, I have to say. Proper old school. I will say straight away, this beer does give you that big, deep, dank bitterness that you want from the West Coast IPAs. I was a wee bit worried about the from the aroma of this one, because it did actually give the impression that it was one of these modern takes on the West Coast IPA where they take the bitterness down, but yeah, certainly not the case here. This one has a big, spicy, floral punch to it. So yeah, this is good. The other thing that's sticking in my mind about this one is that it's actually less sweet than I thought it was going to be. It's got a bit more graininess to it, this one as well. Yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, it gives you what you want from the style. You've got breadiness, you've got a bit of sweetness, big bitterness, and then you've got that oily, fruity character. So yeah, let's just let's break the flavour of this beer down then into stages, as we always do. We'll start on that middle third of the palate then. So, backbone of the beer. For me, the backbone of the beer, you've got that kind of fresh, brown bread crusty character forming the backbone of the beer. As I said, in the flavour, it's a little bit kind of stronger than it is in the aroma, to be honest with you. And as you move further forward, you've got a little bit of that kind of woody. You've got a little bit of that woody character coming out of this one. So yeah, fresh kind of brown bready character in there, a little bit of woodiness. And then yeah, as you sit on top of that, I do get a little bit of cracker out of this one, and the graininess and the crackery character, and a bit of the wood as well, that comes out into the aftertaste. A little bit more actually. So yeah, the way all of that goes together, I think, is really very nice. Yeah, on top of that, you do start to get the bready notes out of this one, and I will say as well, the bready character. The bready character that you get out of this one, you've got this lovely kind of sweet brown bready character to it, and that it takes a wee bit of time to show. You know, when you first take this beer and you get the bitterness right away, you get some of the grainness. So the bready character that you get out of this one does take a wee bit of it does take a little bit of sweetness. You know, it does take a little bit of time for the sweetness to appear, but yeah, above that kind of cracker layer, you've got a layer of like quite dense brown bread. There's a wee bit of graininess to it as well, which is great. And then above that, you've got this kind of white bready character as well, which is really interesting. So the bready notes in this one are a lot less sweet and a lot less oily than I thought they would be, going by the aroma. This is actually quite a crisp. You know, they say that on the can of this beer, that it's quite a crisp IPA, and you know, it is. It actually is. It's quite easy to drink. The only way you can tell that this is so boozy is because of the, you know, the the strength of the bitterness and also the kind of sweeter side of it as well, but still is quite crisp. But above the white bready there, you can feel there's a wee bit of there is a little touch of a slightly toasty caramel note to this one. Some nice McVitie's Digestive Biscuity characters as well. So yeah, McVitie's Digestive Biscuit, slightly toasty, and then you've got that sweet caramelly note coming out of the beer too. So yeah, the way all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. But yeah, toasty biscuit. Then in the centre of your palate, you've got that oily circle there where it's like sweet caramel, straight up, yeah, boozy sweet caramel in there, and a little bit toasty as you move further out, and yeah, there's just that wee bit of biscuit as well. Proper old school, this beer. I've been missing things like this, I do have to say that. I have been missing these kind of beers. But yeah, the way all of that pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. But at this point, I believe we've covered the we've definitely covered the middle third of the palate at this point. So let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third, just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top. Then the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the bread crust is there, it just feels a little bit drier. You've got the cracker on top of that. Then you've got the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy. Then the white bready character above that, which again feels a little bit lighter and more airy. So yeah, the way all of that pieces together is quite nice as well. The bready character just feels that little bit lighter, more airy, and a bit drier, actually, come to think of it. And above all of that, you can feel a little bit of the more toasty aspects of the brown sugar just kind of creeping over the top there. So yeah, above everything else on that back third of the palate, you've got a wee bit of, you have a little bit of earthiness, no, not earthiness, the kind of yeastiness coming out of this one. And the yeasty character is quite interesting in this beer, so let's have a wee look at that. Yeah, for me, the yeastiness in this one is quite straightforward. You've got that dense brown bready character at the centre, and it's quite sweet actually, and as you move out from that, it becomes, you know, you've got more of a white bready character, a little bit of a drier white bread, and then it's surrounded by a wee bit of bread crust, and you do get more and more, you can feel the yeastiness in the top of the mouth at the back of your palate there, and that comes out more and more into the aftertaste with the more grainy aspects of the beer, and also the more kind of yeah, the more kind of woody character that's in there as well. So these notes probably are coming from the yeast rather than anything else, but definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, that's interesting. On the hoppy side of things then, green component, back corners of the palate, you do have a good little bit of earthiness in there, and that lingers into the aftertaste too. But as you move further forward from that, you get a lot of like spicy, there is a wee bit of pine resin in the base, and you can feel as you move further forward, it gets really, really kind of spicy and floral. I would not be surprised if there's Chinook and Columbus in this one, the piney resin coming from the Chinook, and then the sort of more spicy floral note coming from the Columbus. But if you use a lot, you know, a lot of these modern American hops, even Mosaic and things like that, if you use these at the early edition hop, they will give you that big sort of spicy character as well. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, big spicy floral aromatic notes as you reach the front corners of the palate, and then round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is a wee bit lighter and more grassy. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. I do like that on the green component. Proper old school, gives you that big bitterness that you want. So front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. Yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on the top. Then the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice sort of as I say, you've got a nice little bit of that bread, you've got a little bit of that bread crusty base, a little bit of the woodiness and the cracker, then you've got the brown bread, the white bread, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at those then to round off the tasting section. Yeah, so on the fruity side of things, at the back of that front third of your palate, there maybe is a little touch of that more pungent grapefruit. Not too much though. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, it's more kind of big oily passion fruit, a kind of more oily mango, just a bit slightly juicy mango, little bits of dry apricot and pineapple and stuff as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate. But yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is very, very nice in this one. So yeah, and as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about that big sort of tangerine orange. I do suspect mosaic in this one. Citra, going from the flavour of this one, I wasn't, in the aroma I didn't think Citra, it didn't seem as complex, but I could be convinced that it's Citra mosaic, this one. I think, yeah, Citra mosaic, Columbus Chinook wouldn't surprise me in this one. A little bit of Cascade maybe could be as well, but Simcoe, there's quite a lot of soft passion fruit in this one, which makes me think Simcoe as well. It's something quite familiar that's in this beer. This beer has the fruity character has an air of familiarity about it, we could say. So yeah, the way all of that just pieces together, I think, is very, very nice. But yeah, more and more orangey, I think, this one into the aftertaste. There's maybe just a little bit of a lemony limey note behind the very front tip of the tongue where it mixes in with the grassy esters as well. But all in all, really, really nice mix of fruits and stuff like that in this one, and this is giving you what you would expect of the style for sure. Yeah, that's the end of the tasting section. In terms of the mouthfeel then, just to round off the review, for me, yeah, this beer is like top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It's certainly not the heaviest and chewiest of West Coast double IPAs that you're going to come across, but remember at 9.4%, it's pushing the triple IPA category. So yeah, carbonation has a little bit of crispness in this one actually, which is quite interesting. It's got a bit of an oily, slick mouthfeel, a wee bit of dryness and a bit of alcohol bite to it as well. But yeah, the way all of that pieces together, I think, is really nice. It's a very nicely done beer, this one, and Three Floyds have a reputation for a reason. This beer kind of shows that. But yeah, the malt base has a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, a bit of a more oily sweetness on top. You do get a wee touch of alcohol bite out of this one. You can feel that in here. And the booziness is obvious on the palate as well. In terms of the IBU count, this is obviously like a saturation point one. This is at least, this is 100 on the scale. 100 is as much as you can detect basically. So this one is at that point. It's quite spicy into the aftertaste, and yeah, a nice oily, fruity character. So yeah, the way all of that pieces together in this beer, I think, is very, very nice, and it gets a big, big thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about this one. This was the Dreadnaught, a 9.4% West Coast double IPA, or just an Imperial Pale Ale as it was back in the day, and that's what it says on the can, from Three Floyds Brewing in Munster in Indiana. Really cool to return to these guys after a couple of years. And as I say, hopefully I can get back to Chicago at some point soon and see Jesse, and maybe we can go and do an out and about video at their new brew pub. That would be very, very cool. So let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Three Floyds Brewing as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.